Welcome to this week's episode of Financially Speaking. As a local family-built firm, Bushka Retirement Solutions, along with its affiliate companies Bushka Wealth Management and Legacy Tax Solutions, offer one-stop retirement, tax, and legacy planning services to families nearing or already enjoying retirement. Sue Bushka is president of Bushka Retirement Solutions, a retirement planning company helping develop financial, Medicare, and health insurance strategies. Over a decade ago, she partnered with her son, Cole Bruner. Cole, an investment advisor representative that's held to a fiduciary duty, is president of Bushka Wealth Management, a fee-based registered investment advisory firm providing financial planning and investment management for individuals and businesses. Legacy Tax Solutions offers personal and business tax planning and preparation services. Their enrolled agent, Carl Van Setters, is a military veteran with over 10 years of accounting experience and is committed to maximizing your tax credits wherever possible. Over the last several years, Sue and Cole have continued to grow their team of private wealth advisors to meet the increasing demand of retirees seeking guidance. In 2018, Ryan Connor began serving clients at their Eau Claire location. At their Wausau location, Logan Wooler became a part of the team in 2020. And in 2023, Sue's daughter Kaylee Berenson joined the firm. As a family-built firm with offices in Wausau and Eau Claire, their dedicated team of professionals have the experience to provide custom-tailored strategies to help you achieve your long-term financial goals. The next 30 minutes will be filled with retirement information presented by their team in a simple manner that you can understand. So stay tuned because Financially Speaking starts right now.
We've got some interesting questions that our viewers have sent in about housing, mortgages, and debt. A very popular topic right now, I would say.
In this episode, I'm going to talk about your retirement magic number.
Today, Kaylee and I are going to talk about how to invest when you're broke.
And now for our weekly question and answer segment.
Welcome back to Financially Speaking. Today I'm here with Cole and Kaylee from Bushka Wealth Management and Bushka Retirement Solutions. We're going to be answering your questions about planning for retirement, but if you would like to see something answered in a future segment, please send your questions to info@retirewithbushka.com. Cole, Kaylee, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course.
You bet. We've got some interesting questions that our viewers have sent in about housing, mortgages, and debt. A very popular topic right now, I would say. So Kaylee, I'm going to start with you. Should homeowners pay off their mortgages before they retire? Why or why not?
Well, it depends, which is our favorite answer in this industry. But it really does depend on the client situation. It depends on their interest rate. It depends on if, they have a very high interest rate, then it might make more sense for them to, put more money towards that every month and try to get that paid off before they do enter into retirement. Otherwise, if they do have, a lower mortgage rate, then maybe it's fine to just carry that into retirement. And, mortgage is viewed as good debt. So, we need shelter to survive. So just looking on a case-by-case basis on if it meets your needs or if you can try to get it off, then that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a situation where you've got a 2.5% or 3.5% mortgage rate for 30 years, which granted is not the case nowadays if you're purchasing a new home or if you had to refinance or what have you. But I mean, if you have a really low mortgage rate, like Kaylee said, it's probably going to be more valuable for you to pump those additional dollars into your retirement accounts, your savings vehicles, because it's going to add more value long term, under the assumption that you'll probably be making a better return over the course of time on your money than what your debt service is costing you. And so we're not necessarily firm believers that everyone needs to pay off their mortgage before retirement. Certainly it could make sense under certain circumstances. But if you have low interest debt and you're prioritizing paying that off over saving for retirement, that might not necessarily be the best decision for your situation. So talking with a professional could really help shed some light on where are your dollars going to be best served as we look out into the future.
Paying off interest or gaining interest, it's a big decision to make,
Absolutely.
Cole.
Right.
And what can happen to someone who does carry that mortgage debt into retirement?
Well, I mean, obviously we'll have to make sure that we budget for it. I mean, we always say that as long as we have a budget for those types of things, it's not a deal breaker to carry that into retirement with us. It is a nice feeling to know that it is going to end at some point. Even if we, have a 30-year mortgage that we take out when we're 50 and we retire at 65, we still have 15 years of mortgage payments, but that does mean that we're still going to have that paid off at some point in the future. So eventually we are going to have that additional amount of disposable income that will come back into the budget once that debt is officially paid off. And so, as long as we have a plan for contending with that potential debt, it's not a deal breaker. It shouldn't prevent someone from putting together a plan to potentially retire just because they have a mortgage. We've had some people that are like, well, I can't retire until this is paid off. And it's like, well, if you have the financial capability of doing so, it's not necessarily as crucial as some people might think.
Right. And so there's probably some benefits to it too, Kaylee. What are the benefits of carrying a mortgage, if any?
So one of the benefits, like Cole had mentioned earlier, is, investing. If you do have that extra money, you can potentially make more on that than you could, by paying off that mortgage. So obviously, if you have a low interest rate on your house and you can get something that's either guaranteed or, take a higher risk with it, then potentially earning more is definitely in your favor. Otherwise, another thing would be high interest, like credit cards or other high interest debts. If you have some of those that are much higher than your mortgage, maybe it makes more sense to definitely start pumping more money towards those debts rather than the mortgage.
Definitely. Yeah, and obviously with the way that tax legislation is structured right now, most people aren't really benefiting from, deductibility in terms of mortgage interest. But if tax rates do change in the future, which is all subjective as of right now, we don't know exactly where tax legislation is going to go. But if we do revert at some point back to a scenario where the standard deduction is lower and different things like that, I know for a long time people itemized their deductions. They would write off their state and local taxes. They would pay off their write off their property taxes, their mortgage interest, all those types of things. So if we do go back to a similar model to that in terms of taxes, then having a mortgage could benefit you because you are able to deduct that mortgage interest. Or if you have a lot of other deductions and you are still able to itemize, that's helping you to potentially save some money in your federal income tax return. So there's always going to be pros and cons to everything in life. Mortgages are no different. I think, again, tying it back to what we say a million times in our show, but working with a financial professional that has your best interest in mind is going to be able to help you to really drill down into what makes the most sense for your unique circumstances, because there's not one rule of thumb that works for everybody, sadly.
Yeah. And Cole, I'm going to go back to something you said a little bit ago, alluding to the changes in the interest rates on mortgages recently. Yeah. How can our audience prepare for a potential housing market downturn?
Sure. Well, I think the biggest thing is obviously making sure that you're prepared for whatever may come. In terms of a, housing market downturn or anything along those lines, luckily we're not foretelling that or foreseeing that as of right now, because we still have a pretty critical inventory shortage in a lot of areas in the country, especially in our local communities throughout Wisconsin. There's a lack of homes available for buyers. And so I think that does create a little bit of a sense of confidence that we're probably not going to see any major housing crash, because there is still a lot more demand for homes than there is inventory available. Now, if that situation were to reverse somehow in the future, that could create some waves in the housing market, but I think the best thing that you can do to be prepared is to, try to make sure that you're maintaining your mortgage obligations. You're not necessarily refinancing your mortgage multiple times over the course of time to cover other debts. So you're steadily paying that balance down over the course of time rather than kind of ballooning it back up at some point in the future to cover other debts and liabilities. So just being prepared for whatever may come, and obviously having a financial plan in place can really, really help to bring confidence, because like Kaylee had mentioned before, we all need somewhere to reside. We need a house to live in. And it's not necessarily as easy as, just selling our home and going and renting, because obviously renting is a bit more expensive now than it used to be as well. So I think just maintaining your budget, making sure that you're paying your obligations on time, and maintaining your homestead is probably the best way to secure your own financial future, regardless of what might happen in the housing market. Because even if there is a dip in the housing market for a period of time, as we've seen throughout history, it does reaccelerate eventually. We just have to be prepared to deal with those ebbs and flows.
Much like anything in life, right?
Yeah, of course.
Have a plan, be prepared, work with a professional. That's what I've
Absolutely.
learned. Well, thank you both for joining me today and answering our questions about housing and mortgage and debt.
Of course.
And thank you all for joining us. We'll be back with more right after this.
The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 reduced income taxes for many American households, but many of those provisions will expire on December 31, 2025 if Congress doesn't act. That could mean that you'll pay higher taxes, but you can take more control of your retirement by prepaying some of those taxes now at the current rate. Call us at 715-355-4445 or visit retirewithbushka.com for more information. Are you looking for someone to help make retirement planning a little easier? I'm Cole Bruner from Bushka Retirement Solutions, Bushka Wealth Management, and Legacy Tax Solutions. Between our three companies, there's a lot we can do to make your retirement planning process less stressful. By creating a holistic retirement plan that incorporates investment management, income planning, tax planning, as well as health insurance and Medicare planning, you can retire with more confidence and peace of mind. Call us today or go online to schedule your complimentary review.
And now, our Financially Speaking weekly topic segment.
Welcome back to Financially Speaking. I'm Kaylee Berenson from Bushka Retirement Solutions and Bushka Wealth Management. In this episode, I'm going to talk about your retirement magic number. Every retiree needs a magic number, which is simply the amount of money that you need saved to see you through your retirement. A Kiplinger article titled "The Magic Number Needed to Retire Comfortably is More Than You Think" provides excellent insight. The painful truth is that the average American doesn't have enough. The article references a 2024 Planning in Progress study that found most respondents believe that they need nearly $1.5 million in the bank to comfortably retire. The study also found that the average amount U.S. adults have saved for retirement is a mere $88,400, which is actually less than 2023's $89,300. It seems that for some Americans, saving for retirement is getting harder and not easier. Consider that while about 11,000 Americans will turn 65 every day through 2027, only half of baby boomers and members of Generation X think that they'll be financially prepared when they reach their preferred retirement age. Another unpleasant truth is that many expect to outlive their money. The article provides more eye-opening data about how both baby boomers and Gen Xers are faring in terms of preparing for retirement. Presently, just less than half of both boomers and Gen Xers think that they'll be fully financially prepared for their retirements. While anxiety about whether you'll be ready for retirement is normal, the fact that nearly half the members of both of these generations think that they're currently underprepared, it's alarming to me. The data also reveals that 42% of Gen Xers and 37% of boomers think, as currently situated, they'll likely outlive their money during retirement. Gen Xers, as well as millennials, report that they expect to need about $1.6 million in the bank to retire comfortably. And high net worth people, who are those with more than $1 million in investable assets, think that they'll need almost $4 million saved to secure their ideal retirement. There's some good news for younger folks, which is that Generation Z is ahead of the curve. Here's where that data gets really interesting. On average, American adults say that they have began saving for retirement around age 31, but those in Generation Z typically began saving for retirement at about age 22 or a full decade earlier than previous generations. They report that they began earlier to make securing their own ideal retirement more likely. Interestingly, age 22 is 15 years earlier than the average baby boomer began saving for retirement. The article quotes a financial expert from Northwestern Mutual, who notes that recent bouts of inflation pushed people to focus more on their nest eggs. Because of inflation, many people saw that financial magical number go up. So if you're concerned about your retirement savings and your financial magic number, what can you do? Well, step one is to sit down with your financial services professional. Perhaps during your meeting with your financial services professional, your magic number will be much lower than you expected because your home is paid off and your goals for retirement are modest. But if your meetings are revealing that your magic number is higher than you expected, or if you knew your magic number but you're running behind on reaching it, there are options. Maybe you aren't fully maxing out your 401k or your IRA. Even if you can't afford to max out your 401k, every incremental increase that you can make to your savings rate can help you accumulate considerably more. The title of an article by Fidelity says it all. Just 1% more can make a big difference. Perhaps a conversation about an annuity is warranted. A JP Morgan article, How an Annuity Can Help You Plan for your Retirement, explains the different ways that annuities can be beneficial, such as an asset protection, tax-deferred growth, simplified financial management, and more. For those of you who don't know, you can convert a portion of your retirement savings to an annuity, which guarantees payments for as long as you live. However, annuities may not be a good fit for everybody, and guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. A financial services professional can help you determine whether you should consider an annuity. It's also possible that a more aggressive asset allocation could help you energize your savings a bit. Long story short is you have options. Don't panic. Adjust your strategy with the help of your financial services professional and then maintain the discipline to stick to that strategy. If you're ready to talk about your retirement magic number or about how you can be successful in retirement, contact our office today at retirewithbushka.com or call 715-355-4445. We'll be right back with more of Financially Speaking after this.
Have you heard the term fiduciary before? According to Investopedia.com, being a fiduciary means being legally bound to put your client's best interest ahead of your own. Did you know that investment advisors have a fiduciary duty to clients, but broker-dealers just have to meet the less stringent suitability standard, which doesn't require putting their client's best interest ahead of their own? At Bushka Wealth Management, all of our advisors are fiduciaries to provide our clients more peace of mind. Call us today or go online to schedule your complimentary review.
You've worked hard to save money for retirement, but wouldn't you rather thrive and not just survive your golden years? My newly released book, Golden Rules of Finance for the Golden Years, offers key tips for managing your retirement money and ensuring you have a more complete plan to make your retirement dream a reality. Call 715-355-4445 or visit bushkabook.com to request your complimentary copy today.
And now our Financially Speaking weekly desk segment.
Welcome back to Financially Speaking. I'm Cole Bruner from Bushka Retirement Solutions and Bushka Wealth Management. And joining me today is my sister, Kaylee Berenson. Now today, Kaylee and I are going to talk about how to invest when you're broke.
That's right, Cole. And that happens to be the title of an Investopedia article that we will be discussing today. The article offers some excellent ideas for folks who are living paycheck to paycheck.
I appreciated that the article addressed this right away. It's hard for people who don't have a lot of money to invest. You need your money to pay for things that you need now, and that makes it hard to put money away for the future, of course.
That's true, but it's still important to save and invest. You could be worse off in the future if you have no savings. In fact, with no savings, a big unexpected expense could lead to a catastrophe. Plus, you'll need money to supplement your Social Security income when you retire.
I noticed that the article writer slipped in the possibility that Social Security won't be around in another 20 or 30 years.
That is a probability and a topic for a whole other show.
That's true, but I think it underscores the importance of saving and investing, even when you feel like you can't do it.
And I like that the article points out that you don't have to make a big change in your life. It does say that you will have to cut something out, but it doesn't have to be a huge sacrifice. Saving $1 or $5 here and there, it can add up a lot over the long term.
Sometimes a big sacrifice makes sense, though. Did you ever read Evicted by Matthew Desmond?
No, I didn't. What does it say, Cole?
Well, that book tells the story of a woman who lives in a trailer park and gets behind on her rent while paying a hefty cable bill each month. The author points out that television is an important friend since she is relatively isolated.
I appreciate the author's compassion, but I can't agree with his take. Loneliness isn't a reason to pay for expensive cable. The radio is free. Let the radio be your friend and save that big chunk of money.
I think I agree with you, Cole. Local broadcast TV is still free too. Libraries are free and they offer DVDs. According to All Connect, the average cable bill is $122 per month. In my opinion, it would not be responsible to advise somebody to keep paying that amount when they can't come up with rent money. We just talked about how the Investopedia article says saving $5 can add up. Saving $122 every month? I don't see any good reason not to cut that expense, especially if you're in arrears.
Exactly. So let's talk about the options that Investopedia recommends.
Well, DRIPs.
Pardon me?
That's the first article that it recommends. DRIPs, dividend reinvestment plans. DRIPs are a way to invest small amounts of money into dividend-paying stocks, which you buy directly from the company.
So which companies let you do that?
Well, there are several companies that let you buy in tiny amounts of stock and reinvest dividends. Over the long term, these small investments can add up. And once you build a big enough balance, you can consider moving some of that money into different investments.
That sounds like a great option. So what's next on the list?
Well, next on the list is exchange-traded funds, or ETFs. These are financial products that keep track of how certain sectors perform.
There are many different kinds of ETFs. Now, for instance, there are regional ETFs that invest in countries or regions, bond ETFs that invest in corporate bonds and treasuries, commodity ETFs that invest in livestock, precious metals, and oil, real estate ETFs, and the list goes on and on.
Right, and you can buy a single share of an ETF.
If you can put aside a little money to buy a share here and there, those purchases could add up over time, just like with the DRIPs Kaylee mentioned.
And that's right. Next on the list, target date funds.
So what's a target date fund?
Well, a target date fund is the account that automatically adjusts as you approach a specific retirement date.
Now, don't those usually require a minimum investment of $1,000?
Yes, and that can certainly be a stretch for some people who live paycheck to paycheck, but if you can start with one of the other options like ETFs for DRIPs and let that grow, then you can possibly move $1,000 to that target date fund.
That certainly sounds like a good idea to me. So what's next on Investopedia's list?
Well, next, Investopedia mentions 401ks. If your employer offers one, it may be a good idea to participate, even if you think you can.
I agree. Even if you only put in 1 or 2%, that's better than nothing. And if your employer offers a match, you may want to try to save at least enough to max that out. For example, if they match 50% of what you save up to 6%, try to put at least 6% away.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Plus, if you can really only afford to save 1% and your employer matches it, that's better than nothing. And you can increase that percentage incrementally over time. Every percentage point makes a difference.
Some employers automatically enroll employees in 401ks and give them the choice to opt out. I think this could be great for people on tight budgets because they end up saving money without even having to think about it.
I agree completely. I think having to think about saving and investing is often what makes it hard for people. Now, let's talk about investing while you're in debt. The article differentiates between high interest and low interest debt and suggests that your investments have to pay a higher percentage than your interest on your debt for it to be worth your while to invest rather than paying off that debt.
So if the interest on, say, a student loan is 7%, your investments need to earn more than 7% to make investing more profitable than paying down that debt.
Right.
So should people pay off high interest debt before they start investing?
Well, the article does suggest that. If you've got a big balance on a high interest credit card, it may be prudent to pay that down before you start investing any money.
So, should I play it safe and avoid investing if I have any debt at all?
Well, not necessarily. To make money investing, your money needs time to compound. And paying debts can take months or years and rob you of that time that you need your money to compound. So, if you have a mortgage or student loans, you may still want to make small investments while you pay off that debt. Then, when you pay off your student loans, for example, you can take those payments that you were making and put that amount into an investment account.
I think that's a great idea.
And I also think that you can invest while carrying a small amount of credit card debt. However, if you have a significant amount of high interest debt, I think you should focus on that first before shifting to investments.
That certainly all makes sense to me.
Well, the article recommends that debt holders have a different plan from a traditional portfolio with low and high risk investments that adjust according to age and risk tolerance. Instead, it recommends making payments on your loan instead of buying bonds or other low risk investments. Then it suggests focusing the rest of your portfolio on high risk, high return investments.
That seems both prudent and achievable.
Absolutely.
So how much money do people really need to start investing?
Well, according to Investopedia, not a lot. When it comes to workplace retirement accounts, you can start with any amount of money. If you buy stock, having enough to buy one share of something can get you started. And not every stock is a blue chip that trades at $600 per share. The barrier to entry may be a lot lower than you think it is.
So what if you're a beginner?
Well, the article suggests that beginners should start by contributing to a retirement plan and suggests choosing index funds or ETFs.
You can also talk to a financial services professional if you're not sure where to begin. Isn't that right, Kaylee?
100%.
Now, viewers, if you have questions about your current investment strategy, your retirement plan, or other financial matters, Kaylee and I are, of course, standing by along with our other advisors. So contact our office today at retirewithbushka.com or call us at 715-355-4445. And with that, we're out of time for this segment. We'll be right back with more of Financially Speaking after this.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Financially Speaking. We're glad that you were able to join us today, and we hope that you learned some useful retirement tips along the way.
On today's show, we covered a number of important topics, and hopefully we did so in a manner that was easy for you to understand. Now remember, this is the same way that we communicate to our clients when we meet with them in person. And also remember, with the help of the right financial services professional, you can create a quality retirement. And our team is here to help. Right now may be a great time to get a second opinion on your current retirement plan. So call us at 715-355-4445 or go to retirewithbushka.com to continue your retirement education, catch up on some previous episodes of our TV and radio show, or to schedule your complimentary no-obligation consultation.
If you have any questions or comments about today's show, call us at 715-355-4445 or feel free to send us an email at info@retirewithbushka.com. Join us next week at the same time and the same place for another episode of Financially Speaking.